Hello everybody, Avid Assistant here. Happy December to you all. It seems that we have had an early Christmas present from Avid in the form of their .12 December release, which for all of you lovely folks that like to update once per year, is the best version to be on since it gets the longest standardized support and bug fixes long term. And even straight off the bat in this 2023.12.0 version, there have been a slew of bug fixes, as you can tell, addressing a whole number of things, from issues with alpha channels, through to AMA mapping, find script command not working. We've got in total about 4.5 pages worth of bug fixes. So, the purple team over at Avid have been hard at work. But of course, what I want to really talk about in this video, as the title suggests, is what's new. What lovely new features has Avid granted us in this version? And there's one in particular that I think is going to make a lot of long-time Avid editors very, 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 very happy. Especially people who have held off from updating from 2018 and older Avid versions. And no, before you jump to it, it's not a fixed titler. Not yet. We're not expecting that until Q1 next year. But we do have back classic importing, as well as battery importing, hey! As well as a few other things. So let's jump into it. We'll take a look at everything that's new, have a little play with it, and then you can go and decide if you want to update. Now, quickly, there's a couple of little points that I want to point out before we get started. I usually leave this at the end of the What's New videos, but I'm going to put it just a really quick summary at the beginning here. I highly recommend, before you update, that you run the uninstaller of Media Composer. You'll find that in your applications, Avid Uninstallers, Media Composer. Run the uninstaller, install your current version, go to the download center of avid.com in your account, download the newest installer, and install it that way. Then upon launching Media Composer, you're going to want to create a new user profile. This is something that I do at the start of, every new release of Avid. You'll see here that I actually have the version of Avid in the name of my user profile each time. That just helps me keep track. If you are interested, I'll have a video linked down below that shows the process that I always use for updating Avid, which kind of just gives you a better bug-free experience and kind of eliminates a lot of things that can carry over between versions or cause conflicts or cause bad behavior. So I strongly recommend that you go through that update process. But getting the ball rolling with the new features here, the batch subclip tool, which was introduced recently in Avid, I'll have the version number floating up on the screen somewhere just now, has now added support for sequences. So you're not just going to be batch subclipping a whole bunch of master clips to clips on their own, but you can do this to a sequence. So let me show you what this looks like. Now, when I first wanted to test out this feature, I was quite excited to try and test it out on a sync map, on something like this, where I have a whole bunch of video stacked over the audio files, double system audio, and hoping that it would batch create all of the subclips that I have synced manually here, and they'd all be in sync. That is unfortunately not the case. When you right click here on the sequence and we select batch create subclips and we come to the window, we can choose to retain or get rid of markers, create a new sequence, as well as use selected tracks. Now, this is what I had tried. I had selected V1 and A1, and this is what happens. It does create a whole bunch of subclips, but I'll make the bin bigger here so you can see. They are separate subclips of all of the individual instances of the video and all the individual instances of the audio. So this won't be particularly useful for this use case. This would probably be more useful if you're looking to chop up a big video and you could drop it down onto a timeline and have a play with it and add edits and cut it up. And then you could, in one fell swoop, create a whole bunch of subclips. So maybe a bit more useful for factual shows, stuff with, a whole bunch of media and lots to wade through, and you have to make a whole bunch of subclips for GVs, generics, interviews to get everything sorted. It is a new feature, and, wherever there's a new feature, someone's always got a methodology for it. So I'm going to delete those here because I don't need all those subclips, and put my bin back. Now, the next feature up that we've got here is one people are definitely going to like: export transcript. And yes, that is exactly what you think it is. We can now export a transcript created by PhraseFind and ScriptSync AI directly out of Media Composer into a text file. Now, let me show you what that looks like. I'm just going to find a clip with some dialogue that isn't too long.
A wee minute later.
Right, here we are here. We've got a long shot where we see two characters, mainly our female lead here of Martha, for about a minute and 40 seconds in this take. So I'm just going to select it in the bin. Here it is here. Right click, and we go export transcript. That simple. So I'll select that. 1C take 3, that is name. And I'll just add transcripts at the end of it. Just export that to my desktop just now. And so now it's going through its indexing. I've just opened this project up, haven't used it in a while, so I had, phrase find AI has to actually run and do its scan. Once it completes that part of the task, then it will export out the text more or less instantaneously. This is always the longer part.
A wee minute later.
So total time to export that was about 50 seconds. And let's take a look at what it looks like. So we get the project it was exported from. We get the clip name. And then we have a timecode in, out, and the dialogue spoken. And it will go down like that for the rest of the way. And I can tell you, because I'm very intimately familiar with this project, not just because I cut it, but because I've been using it for this channel for, since I started the channel pretty much. And I can tell you that all of the dialogue here, as it's transcribed it, and it's, how phrase find AI has scanned it, is correct. All the dialogue there is bang on, all the way down to the final dialogue there of the director and producer talking to each other after the take has ended. Again, phrase find and script sync AI are exclusive to Avid Ultimate or higher packages of Media Composer, just so that everyone is aware. But this is a very welcome addition. It was definitely, once phrase find and script sync AI were introduced, it was one of the top requests of additions to be added onto it. And so it's the first one of those to come, because I do know they're still looking to add to phrase find and script sync AI. And so, it's not a surprise this was the first one to come out, because it was just, everyone was asking for it. Now, moving on, I'm not quite sure who's requested this. But we're now able to export audio to an M4A container. Not quite sure who was asking for that, but we can do it now. So I've made a preset for it when I was testing it last night. I will show you. Under my export settings, it's called M4A test. And it just looks like that. So it's just under your export as, just under MP4 there's now an M4A setting. I know that is the container that Apple uses for like iTunes files and stuff like that. So it's kind of a smaller container than a WAV file if you're just looking to spit some audio out really quickly, as opposed to an MP3. So we can now do that. Getting down to the star of the show here is QuickTime import for systems without QuickTime installed. So those of you who have an understanding of the new Avid version and issues with QuickTime import and things like that, this mostly boiled down to Apple dropping support for not just QuickTime and the QuickTime engine, but also all 32-bit code, meaning any kind of legacy code within Avid, including the QuickTime engine, would no longer function on Apple systems. This was not the case for Windows systems, which can still run legacy code. They can still run the old titler, they can still run QuickTime importing, battery import, and all the rest of it. But for those of us who are on Macs and we're on any version, post 2019.6, this was no longer the case. So essentially what Avid have done here in their new engine that they had made, UME, the Universal Media Engine for exporting, which is significantly faster than QuickTime, I will say, by the way. It is definitely a superior engine, just from being more modern code. They have now more or less ported over all the functions from the QuickTime engine into UME. So we can now import things like an MP3, for example, or a MOV file. And even though I think people are going to be super excited about being able to just drag and drop and import things again, the one of these that's mostly going to make a difference to me, I will admit, is MP3s, because I have quite an extensive sound effects library. And these are a mix of waves and MP3s, and I had a macro set up to quickly convert them to wave files initially, and then I was dragging and dropping the waves in. And then I was, just alt dragging them in to link them into the bin and consolidating them, which was probably my preferred option. But now, if we have a bunch of MP3s, like I have here, I'll grab these 3 camera effects. I can just go File, Import Media, and straight import those files. So I'll just make sure they're going to my RAID. And there we go. Imported. Now you could see there that the link symbol as there was importing came up for just a second. So I'm assuming this is more or less a script that is linking them in and then doing the transcode and replacing the linked file with the transcode, like a consolidate, in order to bring it in. But either way, it works just like classic importing, and it's very fast. And now I can get my super awesome camera sound effects in really, really quickly. But as I said before, this is not just limited to MP3s. We can do this with MOV files as well. So let me just drag and drop this time my MOV file here straight into the bin. And we can see it imported very, very quickly. And we have our file here. Old school imports are back. Yay! And of course, with old school imports also comes batch re-importing. So we can see we have blue text here. And I'm going to right click on my file that I just imported. And I'm going to select a batch re-import down here. I'm going to go all clips. Then I'm going to select the clip and go set file location. And I've got another version of this, which is purple. And I'm going to select that there. All of this looks right. Then I'm going to go hit import. And it's batch re-imported. And oh, it's changed on the timeline as well. All my text is purple. Batch re-importing works just like it used to. Happy days. Now, one little caveat that I want to mention here before we move on in terms of old school importing on systems like mine that don't have the classic QuickTime engine installed, is there does seem to be some limitations. These are noted in the ReadMe. So the first one is QuickTime movies with alpha channels are always imported as RLE on systems without QuickTime installed. And the second is it is not possible to delete media files associated with Mac keys on systems without QuickTime installed. Only the effects clips can be deleted. Now, I imagine maybe with something like MDV, you might be able to get around that, a little external app, or just by going into the physical Avid media files folder and deleting the media. And there are another few of these here in terms of timeline clip resolutions not matching the original video settings for Mac keys imported into 4K, 8K, 16K higher projects on systems without QuickTime installed. OMF media cannot be created from QuickTime MOV files imported on a system without QuickTime installed. QuickTime movies containing both audio tracks and alpha channel information are always imported as a MAT key unless the alpha channel is set to ignore in the import settings tab. So I actually did notice this when I first went to import that clip that I showed you earlier with the different coloring text. It will always import it as a MAT key if there is color to it at all. So the way to fix that is just to go into your import settings and select ignore under alpha channels, and then it won't. And then you can change that back later if you want to import an alpha channel. Crop pad for DV scan lines difference option in the import settings is not respected when importing media on systems without QuickTime installed. And if clips containing an alpha channel were imported on a system without QuickTime installed, alpha layers in the MAC key clips will not resize properly. So I was able to do some basic resizing on mine. I'm not quite sure what it means by the clips will not resize properly. That is something that will require a little bit further investigation. I've only had this version of Avid for a couple of days to play around with it, and amongst other stuff. I'm not quite sure what that one's about yet. But this is the first implementation of the sort of old school QuickTime engine importing into the newer UME engine. So I imagine there was going to be some hiccups trying to get it to perform exactly the same as it used to be, especially with the same user settings and having, where Windows computers are concerned, both engines currently installed. I can cut them some slack on that one. I imagine these limitations are something that they're going to address in the next version or two as they continue to work on it. Now, these next three features are more technical ones. So the first one is optimizations to the SRT protocol within Avid. SRT stands for Secure Reliable Transport. It's more of a secure encrypted version of the NDI to allow you to stream your Avid out over the internet for remote viewing. And so these include new low and medium setting qualities to improve lower bandwidth use cases. For better responsiveness. And now SRT streams are also able to incorporate ancillary timecode as metadata as well. So for those of you who are using the SRT protocol, which is found in Media Composer Ultimate and higher, you now have some new tweaks which may make for a more reliable stream in your remote viewing. Next down from that is our two favorite new AIs, Phrase-Find AI and ScriptSync AI, are now fully supported. They are no longer in beta as they have been since they debuted in the last version. Very welcome news that those two features are maturing and bettering themselves. And lastly, it's Avid Huddle support. So Avid Huddle is a very new feature, which is I haven't actually seen talked about that much. I think I kind of missed the memo on this one. I had to do some research. And from what I can tell on avid.com, Avid's website, it is Avid's own remote collaboration and viewing platform. So this will allow you to stream your Avid out. It'll also incorporate a video call as well as a chat. You'll be able to annotate on the picture. And it is a secure stream as well. Now, I'll leave a link to this page down below in the description of the video so you can check it out yourself. And well, this looks and sounds amazing. Like, I absolutely love the concept. Since I've used some apps that are similar to this, like LouperIO, which is great, by the way, I have to say that a couple of the caveats that I saw is that you will also need to purchase a license for Avid Huddles from Avid. This will not come with your Media Composer Ultimate. And you will also need to have a work or school license for Microsoft Teams, which is sort of what's supporting the back end of the video calling. So that'll be two additional licenses on top of your Media Composer that you're going to have to use. So I imagine this mostly being used in larger studio environments, again, where Avid seems to focus its support. If you are a single freelancer who also rents out their own Avid, and you want to utilize something like this in your production, then I'd maybe nudge production and see if you can get production or the post facility to purchase a license for it. Now, one thing to note is that only the editor who's streaming the broadcast of the Avid out will have to have an Avid Huddle license, but each member of the video chat will have to have a Microsoft Team license of some kind, either the work or the school one, sort of professional tiers. So I'll mention here because this is introduced in this version, it's now supported, and it looks really, really, really cool, but not something I'll probably be jumping on in the near future, only because of justifying the expense and the linkage to Microsoft Teams, which I don't really have access to. And while that does wrap us up for all the main new features of this Avid 2023.12, I just want to do a little bit more housekeeping in terms of mentioning qualified hardware and operating systems. So in the ReadMe for this release, you will find lots of details on qualified hardware, like officially supported hardware. In terms of software, you should be good if you're on Windows 10 or 11, 64-bit, 21H1 or later. And as for macOS, there's a whole bunch of different macOS noted here. The main new addition is that all of Ventura is now supported, as well as the first two iterations of macOS Sonoma, so macOS 14. So up to the very current iteration at time of recording this video, macOS 14.1 is now officially supported by Avid Media Composer. Now, I have made the update and I have been using Avid all day, and I'm on a continuing project with a client, and Avid has been performing perfectly fine. But I will say, if your Avid is stable and it is working and it is fine, don't jump to update unless the new version of macOS or Windows. I think Mac's just a bit more annoying about it in terms of reminding you updates. That's why I'm sort of focusing on that. Don't jump to update unless you sort of have to, or if there's a feature that you really want, just do some research into it and definitely back up your Mac before you do the update. I did a full system backup. I have a full bootable backup of my Ventura Mac system on here. But again, I will say, since I updated to Sonoma, there have not been any issues on my Mac thus far. It's been performing really well, actually. But guys, I think that's me covered and demonstrated everything that you'll need to know to get stuck into the new .12 version. If you try it and you have any issues, you know, trying to reproduce anything that I've done here or anything else that's new in the version and having any issues with it, feel free to comment on the video and I'll have a play with it myself, see if I can help you out. Otherwise, thank you very, very much for watching, guys, and, you know, happy cutting, Merry Christmas. See you when I see you in the next video, which might be very soon or it might be in the new year. It depends when I get time. I'm hoping it's going to be next week, but we'll see. But yeah, either way, happy cutting in the meantime, and may the edit gods watch over you. And thank you, Avid, for the new version. Merry Christmas.